You wake up and everything is normal. The alarm goes off at 6:48. The ceiling fan is spinning. Somewhere outside, a car alarm is going off, but that is not unusual. You lie there for a moment, eyes open, thinking about nothing in particular. Then you notice it. The car alarm has been going off for a long time, not the usual 30 seconds. Much longer. You check your phone. No notifications. Not one. You have 47 unread messages in a group chat that is usually active by 7 a.m., and the last message was sent last night at 11:52. You text your partner. Nothing. You call your mother. It rings out. You open the news app. The last headline was published 9 hours ago. You get dressed. You walk outside. The street is empty. Not quiet morning empty. Not early Sunday empty. Empty. Cars sit at odd angles in the road. One has jumped the curb and rests against a telephone pole. Engine still running. A bicycle is lying on the sidewalk beside a grocery bag that is spilled onto the concrete. Apples, a jar of pasta sauce, unbroken, just sitting there. A dog is sitting on the steps of the house across the street, watching you with an expression you cannot interpret. Every human being on Earth is gone. Not dead, not destroyed, just gone, vanished. As if someone pressed delete on 8 billion people simultaneously and forgot to take their stuff. You are the last person on Earth. Let's talk about what that actually means, because the reality is stranger, more dangerous, and ultimately more hopeful than any movie has ever shown you. The first thing you need to understand is that the infrastructure keeping you alive right now does not run itself. The electricity powering your phone, your refrigerator, your water pump, it is not stored somewhere waiting patiently. It is being generated continuously in real time by power plants staffed by human operators, making thousands of small adjustments every hour to match supply with demand. Without those operators, the grid begins to fail within hours. Electrical engineer Masoud Amin of the University of Minnesota, who has published extensively on grid resilience and cascading failure, has described how the interconnected nature of modern power grids makes them vulnerable to exactly this kind of sudden, total loss of human oversight. Automated systems can maintain balance for a short time, perhaps a few hours to a few days depending on the grid. But without human operators to manage fuel supply, adjust load balance, and respond to equipment failures, the grid will begin to shed load in sections, triggering cascading failures that propagate across entire regions. In North America, the grid could fail within 24 to 72 hours of losing its human operators. This means your phone goes dark, your refrigerator stops, the water treatment plant that keeps your tap water safe loses power and stops operating. The pumps that push water through the pipes lose pressure. Within a few days, the water coming out of your tap, if it comes out at all, is no longer guaranteed to be safe. By day 3, you are already managing a survival situation. But you are intelligent, you have read things, and the world around you is, for now, still extraordinarily well stocked. The first decision you make is location. Staying in a large city has short-term advantages. Massive food stores, hardware stores with every tool you could need, medical supply warehouses, libraries. But large cities are also dependent on infrastructure in ways that rural areas are not. High-rise buildings require electric pumps to get water above the 4th floor. The enormous food supply in a city is largely perishable and will begin rotting within days to weeks. Geographer Lawrence Smith of Brown University, who has written about long-term human survival and resource geography, has noted that the most resource-rich environments for a solitary survivor over the long term would be temperate zones with access to fresh water, arable land, and natural shelter, not dense urban cores. You start making lists. Week 1 is about priorities: water, food, shelter, warmth, and information. You raid a camping supply store and load a vehicle, a diesel truck, because diesel degrades more slowly than gasoline, giving you perhaps a year or two of usable fuel if sealed. You find water purification tablets, a hand-pumped water filter, a crank-powered radio. You locate the nearest library and spend an afternoon pulling books. Wilderness survival, first aid, seed saving, basic construction, animal husbandry, solar panel installation. Knowledge, you realize, is now your most critical resource. Everything you do not know how to do, you must learn from books, because there is no one to ask. Month 1 is the strangest psychological experience any human being has ever faced. Research on extreme isolation has given us a window into what your mind will go through. Psychiatrist Stuart Grassian of Harvard Medical School, who has studied the psychological effects of solitary confinement, found that even partial isolation, a few hours of reduced social contact per day, produces symptoms including anxiety, perceptual distortions, hypersensitivity to stimuli, and intrusive thoughts within days. Total isolation from all human contact produces more severe effects more rapidly. But Grassian also found something important. The human mind has remarkable adaptive capacity. People who have a sense of purpose, structured routine, and meaningful tasks fare dramatically better under isolation than those who do not. You need a project, not just survival, something beyond survival, something to work toward. The animals, meanwhile, are adapting faster than you are. Within weeks of human disappearance, wildlife ecologist Chris Thomas of the University of York, who has studied rewilding dynamics, and researchers associated with the Rewilding Europe initiative have documented how quickly nature reclaims human spaces when pressure is removed. Wolves return to city outskirts within months. Birds colonize abandoned buildings. Vegetation pushes through road surfaces. The process is not slow or gentle. It is aggressive, opportunistic, and remarkably fast. Within a year, the suburbs are beginning to look different. Within a decade, without human maintenance, most wooden structures begin to fail. Concrete holds longer, decades in many cases, but vegetation works its way into every crack. The animals are not a threat to you in the way movies suggest. The predator population, wolves, bears, mountain lions, is small and without human encroachment on their territory, largely uninterested in you. More significant dangers are domestic animals gone feral. Millions of dogs, released from their homes when their owners vanished, have been forming packs. Dog behavior specialist Dr. Alexandra Horowitz of Barnard College has documented how quickly domestic dogs revert toward pack behavior when social structure breaks down. By month 6, you have settled into a routine that would be unrecognizable to the person you were before. You wake at dawn because that is when the light allows you to work. You spend the mornings on physical tasks, maintaining your shelter, tending a small garden you have established from seed packets found at a garden center, checking the rainwater collection system you built following instructions in a homesteading manual. The afternoons are for learning, working through books on topics you never needed before: soil science, fermentation, basic metallurgy, plant identification. The evenings are the hardest. This is when the silence becomes something you can almost hear pressing against you. Evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar of Oxford University, known for Dunbar's number, his research establishing that humans maintain stable social groups of approximately 150 people, has argued that human beings are so fundamentally wired for social connection that its complete absence represents a physiological stressor as significant as hunger or physical injury. Loneliness, in the clinical sense, is not an emotional state. It is a biological condition that triggers measurable stress responses, impairs immune function, and accelerates cognitive decline. You are, by every biological measure, a social animal in a world with no society. And yet, psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps and wrote about the human capacity for meaning-making in his landmark work Man's Search for Meaning, argued that human beings can endure almost any condition if they have a sufficient reason to endure it. Purpose, Frankl wrote, is not a luxury. It is a biological necessity. You begin to think about the long term, not just surviving this year, but what you are building toward. You find a greenhouse. You begin growing food at a scale beyond your immediate needs. You find a solar panel installation manual and spend 3 weeks wiring a small array to a bank of salvage batteries, giving yourself light after dark, a radio receiver, and eventually a small pump for your water system. You find a printing press in a museum and spend a month figuring out how it works, because you have begun to think about what knowledge needs to be preserved. By year 2, something unexpected happens. You stop grieving. Not because you have stopped missing people. The missing is always there, a permanent background frequency. But something shifts in your relationship with time. Psychologist Daniel Gilbert of Harvard University, who studies effective forecasting, how well humans predict their own emotional futures, has found consistently that people dramatically overestimate the duration of negative emotional states. The human mind has what Gilbert calls a psychological immune system, a set of unconscious cognitive mechanisms that help us adapt to even catastrophic circumstances, reframe them, find meaning within them. You are not happy exactly, but you are alive, and you have built something real. By year 5, you have a working farm, a reliable water and power system, a library of preserved knowledge, and a life with structure, purpose, and even occasional beauty. The world outside your fenced perimeter is wilder than it has been in centuries. There are wolves in the valley below your homestead now. You have watched them from the ridge at dusk, moving through what used to be a subdivision, and you have felt something complicated. Grief for what was lost, and something unexpected alongside it. The Earth, freed of 8 billion human beings and their infrastructure, is healing faster than any scientist predicted. Atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations begin to fall within years as industrial emissions stop overnight. Research published by climate scientist Glenn Peters of the Cicero Center for International Climate Research has modeled scenarios in which sudden cessation of human industrial activity produces measurable atmospheric changes within a decade. The oceans begin to recover. Fish populations that have been in decline for generations start to rebuild. The Great Barrier Reef, stripped of agricultural runoff and warming pressure, begins to show signs of recovery. Biodiversity, measured by the number of species present in a given ecosystem, begins to climb. The planet is not destroyed without us. It is, in almost every measurable way, recovering. This is the thing no one tells you about being the last person on Earth. It is not just a story about loss. It is also a story about what the world looks like when we stop. When the noise goes quiet, when the lights go out across every city simultaneously, when the rivers run clear and the skies empty of contrails, and the wolves walk back into the places they were driven from thousands of years ago. You climb the ridge one evening in your 5th year, and you look out at a valley that has no roads left visible under the vegetation, no lights, no sound except wind and water, and the distant call of something wild that has reclaimed this space. And you think about the 8 billion people who were here, what they built, what they loved, what they were trying to do. And you think about what it means that one of them is still here, watching, still learning, still building, still despite everything, reaching forward into a future that does not yet exist. That is the most human thing there is. And you are, at least for now, the last human there is. So you reach forward anyway.